Welcome viewers to your very, very favorite show, Journal of Education. So today here I'm joined by my guest, the HOD of Civic Department and two students from Harare Polytechnic. Today we're going to discuss about civic education in particular, since it's a very, very interesting subject, especially at tertiary institutions. So say, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Alright, say, can you do us the honors of introducing yourself?
My name is Chipeni F. I'm the head of Department of Civic Education at Harare Polytechnic.
Alright, so you?
My name is Melissa Murunda, Master of Education Department.
Hi, my name is Carl. I'm from the Graphic Art Designs Department.
Alright, so thank you guys. So say, I need you to tell us, when did you start being the HOD at Civic Department?
Alright, I was HOD Civic Education Department since 2015.
Alright.
Right through to 2019 this year. Basically that's it. But I think I joined the department in 2006.
Alright.
So from 2006, that's when I went on to rise through the ranks from being a lecturer into becoming a lecturer in charge, then from lecturer in charge into becoming head of department.
Alright. So we've noted that most people don't really know the importance of civic education, especially in our society, and even the students who are studying it. What is the main reason behind why these modules were introduced?
Alright, thank you. NAS, which is short for National Studies, was introduced in 2003. Basically, the whole idea there was that all tertiary institutions were supposed to embrace national values, right, of being a Zimbabwean, right? And in that regard, these essentially were supposed to permeate through all the graduates, such that when graduates aim their technical skills, which they are going to be gaining from the various disciplines they will be learning, then they also were supposed to be well-rounded and well-grounded being Zimbabwean graduates, such that after their particular course, they tend to feel that with the technical skills they have, they also have a role to play within the country of Zimbabwe.
Alright, so basically NAS helps you to be someone who's patriotic, right? So what about ESD? How does it help you as an individual?
Alright, ESD, that's short for Entrepreneurship Skills Development. Again, this is a sister subject to National Studies. The essence of that subject is basically to ensure that our graduates, right, in tertiary institutions, they get to have attitudes, right, which correspond with being entrepreneurs after they graduate. And this has been tailor-made towards ensuring that our graduates they certainly move away from the employment-seeking syndrome. The whole essence of the fact that in this era you can actually become an entrepreneur yourself and actually go on to grow and employ other people. Yet at the same time you also go on to contribute towards the GDP of the country. So in essence, ESD is there to bring forth values which associate students to marry their technical skills into becoming entrepreneurs in the real world.
Alright, so I've noted that most people are going, especially to universities or to these tertiary institutions, they don't really know, they're not doing modules that can help them later on when they're done with school. So speaking to NAS and ESD, right? What the university also taking these modules?
Oh yeah, indeed. These modules are also being taken at university. They've been mainstreamed in the various courses which are being offered in tertiary education. So you find National Studies is offered in the polytechnics and teachers' colleges. But when you go to universities, some universities call it citizenship education.
Oh, okay.
Right. Then you find that almost every degree program, right, also does have entrepreneurship. It's simply something which has just gone on to be mainstreamed in the courses, not necessarily locally, but from a global point of view, because it has gone on to be noted that entrepreneurs are the drivers of economic growth.
Mm-hmm.
Economic growth, which actually is the precondition for economic development, if we're really to say that this country will move forward and have sensible development. So this subject, entrepreneurship, is actually very critical in that regard.
Alright, so over to you students. Melissa, when you're told that you're now going to start ESD and NAS as your compulsory modules, how did you feel?
At first, I actually felt affected because coming from A level, when we used, to 3 subjects, and then we're coming to college, and then we're having 9 modules, I felt challenged.
Alright.
With the idea that if you fail one, then you're not able to proceed. I did not actually feel like I could actually handle the 9 modules. We're still with NAS and ESD, which I hadn't even applied for.
Alright, what about you, Carl?
Well, with the same point of view, it was more like, we have more things that help us to enable us to, as students, as young people, as young entrepreneurs, to be engaged in the world and in the industry as well. So it was more challenging as well, in the sense that we had to tackle more things that we weren't relating to. Like she mentioned, we did 3 subjects at A level, but it's more 9 modules when you come to the tertiary education. So when we introduce these things, it's more like, this is the real world. How do you tackle it?
Alright.
So that's from my point of view.
Alright, so I'll say, we've noted that when you're still in primary school or in high school, you study social studies, you study history. Is there much difference from these subjects to NAS and ESD modules?
The answer is yes, the answer is no. Right?
Okay.
At primary school, yes, there's social studies, there's history. But when we do study NAS, right, there are certain aspects which we emphasize. It's not more like we are doing mainstream history as it was done at O level.
Alright.
There are certain values which needs to be reinforced, right, within individuals. And also what need to be noted here is that these subjects, right, they are also life skills subjects, right? It's only when, for instance, somebody gets to travel abroad, right, that they get to appreciate what does it mean being a Zimbabwean.
Exactly.
But when you are locally, right, it's some things which you get to be, which people get to take for granted. So in essence, we are saying that, the students are saying that they get overwhelmed with 9 modules, but what they want to understand is that when they applied for their particular courses, right, they were selected on the basis that they meet the requirements to go through the curriculum, and these subjects are part of the curriculum. And also they need to be seen in the context of saying that these subjects are more like your communication, right? In any particular field, for you to make it, you need to understand communication. You need to communicate your ideas, you need to communicate your views, you need to communicate whether it's creative designs, whatever the case might be. Communication is of essence. Just like you find that we now have introduction to computers as compulsory subjects as well.
Alright.
Why? It's because of the fact that they are important in terms of life skills. Right? In the 21st century, there's no way you can cope without ICT skills. So at the end of the day, the way those subjects are mainstreamed in the main courses is because of the fact that they need to help students in a particular range of issues. So this is how NAS and ESD should be seen. And those who have gone on to embrace NAS and ESD in MSc, right, if you go out there, they're actually reaping the rewards with regards to that.
Oh, alright, so. But so do you think that making the modules compulsory, it is a necessity? So isn't there any other ways that you can use so that someone can attain life skills that can help you when you're done with school?
Right, the whole idea of where we're saying that these are life skills, it means that each and every one of us require those. Right? Because if you find that you are somebody who is at a particular age, but you are deficient of certain skills, then at the end of the day, that's when people talk about functional illiteracy. So that's the reason why we have these subjects being made compulsory. Just like, for example, you have a graduate, right, who graduates from the Polytechnic, for example, and then this graduate doesn't know how to switch on a computer. Right. And people born after 1980, right, internationally are known as the net generation. Why? Because of their ability to manipulate ICT platforms. Right? And then if you find yourself, you've come through college, you've done introduction to computers, you can't switch on a computer, there is a problem.
Exactly.
So this is the whole idea where we are saying that NAS and ESD, they're just like, these are the subjects, these are the generic subjects, your introduction to computers, your communication, they are there to facilitate certain attitudes, certain values, which also are very vital in being empowered and also a citizen who can contribute meaningfully towards the development of the nation.
Alright, so guys, do you think that making NAS and ESD modules compulsory is necessary for students?
Yes, actually, I've come to realize that these subjects actually have a greater impact other than the ones that, not necessarily over the ones that we applied for generally, but they actually work hand in hand. With us knowing, specifically for me, getting to understand media needs me first to understand where I'm coming from, where I'm standing. For example, with NAS, I get to appreciate myself first as a Zimbabwean, and as I said, I actually get to communicate first as a Zimbabwean because I have to understand my audiences. So if I'm going to communicate to Zimbabweans, I have to at least appreciate myself first. And then on the aspect of ESD, the whole essence of how we grew to actually understand education is that we have to go to school and then the next thing we seek employment. But then when we get to college and then we are taught, you know what, you can actually create employment. Before I find a place where I can actually get employed to communicate, I myself can actually start actually communicating. For instance, there's the freelance media. I can actually start doing it at school because I've learnt it as a young entrepreneur. I've learnt it in class. I've learnt it even before I actually get the diploma that I applied for.
Alright, what about you, Carl?
Well, for me, it's more like what's the best thing than to understand your own background. So for me, it's more like understand your background. Like I'll say here, he mentioned about the international level.
Alright.
If we go abroad, it's more like I have to understand who I am. So in terms of maybe I'm in the UK, I'm in Canada, I'm in Asia, it's more like what can I bring to this continent that they don't have, that I can, based on where I come from. So it's more like, yes, I have knowledge from where I come from, I have wisdom from where I come from. It's more like, do I have to apply to the real world as well, just to show them where we are as Zimbabweans, as students from Zimbabwe. So it's more like I have to show them what we can also produce in our own nation. So understanding where we come from is the key for me. Why? Because many people, especially in the Western region, they consider Africa as one unit, as a village in general. So it's more like, yeah, it's a village, yes, but we have this that you don't have. Especially from us, we have more connection in terms of community-wise, and that's through us understanding where we come from as individuals, as Zimbabweans in general. So for me, it's more like, yes, we can show the world what we are, and we can also improve the world from how we understand as Zimbabweans in general.
Alright, my Jonas, I like to call you Jonas because my viewers, that's your nickname, right? So what you've learned that NAS is helping students in terms of knowing your background, knowing your national status, right? That can help you even when you go into international fora. Even ESD can help you to attain life skills that you can use in terms of coming up with your own businesses, so that Africans or black people don't just be you don't have to rely on other people in terms of development. They can start their own businesses. So with that, we'll be doing away with the idea of dependency syndrome. So with this, my viewers, I hope that you're enjoying the show. Stay cool, stay right there on the TV. Ciao. Welcome viewers to our second segment, Journal of Education. So here I'm going to ask my say here. We have the HOD of Civic Education. That in my research I've noted that most students have a negative attitude towards the modules. What do you think is really the problem?
All right, thank you. I think the negative attitude simply stems from the fact that maybe the manner in which NAS and ESD was introduced 2003, then also the political environment which was obtaining during that particular time, went on to make people, especially for NAS, appear as if they align, right, NAS with maybe a particular political party. But what needs to be noted is that NAS has nothing to do with a particular political party. It's simply a subject which is there to ensure that students in tertiary education, they attain values which are responsible in shaping them into being truly Zimbabwean individuals. And also, as you highlighted earlier on, there's an emphasis with regards to issues to do with patriotism. But also what needs to be noted is that the issue that NAS, maybe it's because it started a bit late, right? But if you look at some of the great nations in the world, right, they actually have got tailored programs like NAS. They may not necessarily call them NAS, but citizens of their country, essentially, they go through the same kind of programs. No wonder why you find that Americans, they are intensely patriotic to their country. It's because of values which get to be translated to the citizens through such programs, right? You go to China, you go to UK, it's the same thing. And then in the case of Zimbabwe, maybe the programs came a little bit late, and like as I highlighted, it was in the height of this situation where the political environment, right, which obtained back then, essentially went on to militate against a favorable picture to it. But I think with the passage of time, students are beginning to appreciate, right, the fact that NAS is more than what they get to hear about other people say. Like the usual perceptions that NAS is about history. No, but NAS, you find that yes, history is a critical component, right? Just like with any discipline, right? You want to study journalism, you want to study management, engineering, medicine, you need to study history of that particular discipline. Hence, NAS is saying you being a Zimbabwean, you need to appreciate, right, the history of this particular country so that you understand dynamics which are helping shaping the policies which the country essentially also does go on to take. But all the same, as I'm saying, you find that there are other modules like international relations, there are also legal and parliamentary studies. They are all very embracing and important in making a citizen become a responsible citizenry and also being knowledgeable and empowered from a knowledge economy point of view. So in that regard, we tend to see that NAS is more than history. And just like, for example, you guys are from mass communication, you tend to see that about 30% of what you learn in mass communication is comprised in NAS, because you've got history, you've got international relations, you need to learn about legal aspects of media like the IPA, etc., for you to be a journalist who certainly understands what they're doing.
All right. Over to you guys. What do you think is the main reason why people have a negative attitude toward the modules?
I think students have come, we as students rather, we just have a perception that NAS is history because of the Mutapa states, the Great Zimbabwe, that is, enshrined in the module, right? But then, if you really dig deep, you find out that in as much as you want to triumph in whichever category you're actually studying, whichever profession you want to pursue, there's need for you to at least look back, get an appreciation, because in that very same history we did back then, perhaps we just did it in high school just for the sake of just knowing a bit of our history. But now that we are young adults, we actually have an appreciation of how these people did their things, right? You find out that once you know where you're coming from and where you're headed, you can actually be a better person in terms of how you're going to actually implement better ideas, because generally almost everything has been invented, but then what matters is how are you actually going to develop something that has been developed by someone and actually make it something advanced. For instance, people have been communicating back then in history, but the way they have been communicating, it's up to us to actually find better ways of actually ensuring that we communicators must communicators.
All right, what do you call?
Well, for me, it's more like technology kind of ruined everything.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, especially as students. It's more like, why do I have to learn about that?
All right.
If I can know what's the real world is all about. Well, if we look at it, yes, technology is advancing over and over, and we can't keep up with it, especially as a nation. Why? Because we don't have people who actually appreciate what we have and where we came from. So it's more like we're trying to live like Americans, we're trying to live like the British, we're trying to live like the Chinese. I don't know what kind of put ourselves into, but it's more like, yes, it's advancing, but do we really appreciate what we have? So technology, I feel like it's limiting us in a way, but we actually appreciate it in a way, because it gives us information as well about where we came from. So as a student, it's more like I didn't know about what we came from, where we came from, but it's more like I can research on that, right? But at the same time, it's more like I don't want to research where I came from. I don't want to know about my background. Why? Because we kind of messed up with the first world countries and what they're into and what can we do to get to them.
Yeah.
So I feel like technology kind of messed up us in terms of they are there and we are here.
All right, that's a very brilliant point. So, since now we have a challenge of technology, since now people are now adapting cultures that they are not theirs, and they now think that Western cultures they are like probably good to them. Is it a challenge in terms of you now teaching the students these modules?
No, there's no challenge. And actually what we want to understand is that technology is good for society because technology makes things easy, right? So for us, when we are teaching NAS, right, the whole idea is that people simply are supposed to embrace attributes which essentially does permeate what it entails being a Zimbabwean, right? And as I mentioned earlier on, right, even though you try to mimic, right, another culture, right, but the moment you go out there, you get to understand that you are a Zimbabwean, and that culture essentially may actually be ring-fenced against you. So in essence, that's why we're saying that mass is a very critical subject which needs to be looked at from the point of view of developing real values and ethos which mold an individual who can essentially say that they are truly a Zimbabwean. But all the same, right, as I said earlier on, you guys are the next generation. It's your ability to manipulate ICT platforms, and you should move with the wave. But all the same, you find that history doesn't get to be lost, right? Because there's technology. Actually, I'll give you, like we were talking about entrepreneurship, right? A young lad from UK, right, at the age of 16, right, he was studying history, right, and not that there's too much to read in history, so he had to he went on to invent an app called Trimit, which he sold to Apple, right? And then that app later on went on to be developed into a newspaper summarizing app, which went on to be bought for 30 million by Yahoo, right? So someone who has barely gone for college, right, has introduced an app, right, based on the fact that you were studying history and wanted to make history easy and interesting. Not that it's irrelevant, but it's the history which has gone on to bring about the application Trimit, which has gone on to make that young individual a sensation, a millionaire. His name is actually Nick Aziglio. So he works for Yahoo. So in essence, we are saying that motivation for people to do good, to be creative, essentially also does come from different angles. It's not necessarily that if you are stuck on technology, that's where you're going to get the best ideas.
All right. As they given an instance that someone who's so much diluted in other people's culture, how then do you best help such a student? Because it's really going to take time for the student to try to adapt to actually appreciate their culture. Because if you see that the youth of today, they even dress like people from the West, even the way we talk, the way we just do everything. So how then do you do it for you to change the person into such personality?
All right, the whole simple thing here is that we are living in a knowledge economy, right? And knowledge is of essence for someone to make decisions, right? How can someone who has a diluted culture get to appreciate their culture when they're not knowledgeable of their culture? So what NAS is trying to put across is that we as Zimbabweans, there are things which are very vital, which are uniquely Zimbabwean, right? Which makes Zimbabwe a distinct nation. And if you look back, Zimbabweans have been great since the time of Great Zimbabwe, right? Even up to today, we tend to see that Zimbabweans, they tend to be unique in a particular way. And all these are now the values and attitudes which NAS is trying to reinforce. So at the end of the day, we're simply saying, when we look at NAS, it's not just the whole idea that we are saying that people should simply go and regurgitate history. They should appreciate what is this history all about. And then also, as I mentioned earlier on, NAS is a little bit different from the way history is taught at all level. In the essence that, for example, if we're looking at Great Zimbabwe, for instance, yes, we have Great Zimbabwe, Mutapa, etc., but there are certain things which we want to emphasize which are of importance. And those things were not even emphasized at all level history. For instance, we would want to appreciate Zimbabwean values. For instance, the fact that, let's say we talk about the Zuluramambo concept, right? What was its importance? The importance was that it's a social insurance scheme. Zimbabweans, since time immemorial, have always tried to ensure that no person in the country would die from starvation. That's why there was this Undramambo concept. And then in modern day society, we find that during 2007-2008, right, National Arts Council actually adopted the Undramambo concept, right, whereby people would be given ARVs, but food was a bit scarce. And then you find any drug regime requires nutrition. So National AIDS Council would go and give food to the chief. Then people taking ARVs would go to the chief and have food, so that the ARV and the food would make that person wholesome. So this is indigenous knowledge system.
Right.
Just like when you are talking about saying, when you look at the people of Great Zimbabwe, right, who certainly are people of a particular totem, right? These people, when we talk about totems, right, it's an emphasis on indigenous knowledge system again, saying that if you are someone, Shumba, right, you would want to see lions being preserved. If Kanauri Soko, you would not want to see Sokos being trampled upon. So it was a way of trying to reinforce that people are supposed to preserve our natural resources, not merely simply say that for just for the sake of it. There's that particular attribute related to the education, which if a person gets to understand, they'll get to appreciate that. Right? If we're talking about sustainable development, we borrow, right, our present life from the future generation. So we need to be sustainable in the manner in which we use those resources. And in essence, NAS is trying to emphasize such particular things by teaching values which are very unique and truly Zimbabwean, ensuring that we have a nation which continues for posterity.
Alright, so guys, as the show keeps on getting interesting and we keep on learning new stuff, well, we gotta get to give a break, right? So stay tuned, guys, as we're going for a commercial break. Welcome guys to our last segment of the genre of education. I want to spice it up with a little of French, right? So anyway, sir, we've learned that in NAS you can grasp a lot of things, even in ESD, which is the study of entrepreneurship studies, right? So in the event that someone has learned how to start his or her own business, right? But then in an economy where things are really hard, how can they start their own things?
All right. Entrepreneurship is all about seeing an opportunity, looking for solutions to that opportunity, and you get a reward. That's what an entrepreneur is. Yeah. When things are bad, that's when you find other people will be looking for opportunities. And indeed, yes, at times you find that people may say that startup capital is a problem, but nonetheless, there are various ways in which one can raise money in order to fund your idea. If your idea is a bankable idea, through, like, for example, the trading goes through ESD, you come up with a bankable proposal, then you can approach a variety of individuals or institutions, right, to convince them that this particular idea works. And in that regard, at the end of the day, you may find yourself really becoming an entrepreneur and also an employer and a tax contributor to the nation, and all that essentially is important for national development.
Alright, so over to you guys, since you're from different departments, given that you've studied NAS, you've studied ESD, how is it helping you particularly in the area of study that you are?
Well, as for me, entrepreneurial skills development has actually, impacted a lot. Because generally when I came to study mass communication, I just had the mentality that I definitely have to be either radio DJ or TV personality or perhaps one of the the news writers.
Yeah.
But then I realized there's actually more to mass communication apart from that.
Exactly.
The Facebook that we waste time posting pictures, the Instagram, the Twitter, you can actually get actually a business from that. You can actually create something from that. Perhaps create a website, because that's how other people are doing it. So generally create a website, communicate, they find followers, make money. So it's actually helping me as an individual, and I'm certain it can help others too.
Well, since I'm into creativity and designing everything, I totally agree to what Sir said pertaining to where we came from, our background, our origins. So those things I can take and say, you know what, I can actually put them into the industry. Why? Because I can design certain things pertaining to where I came from as an individual. Say Great Zimbabwe, it's a good example. We can put designs out there, worldwide or nationwide, and people can actually say, oh wow, that's actually quite good. Creativity wise, it's more like I'm appreciating where I came from, and I'm also promoting where I came from, in the sense that I'm promoting the nation.
Alright.
I'm promoting the values that I have, and I'm actually proud of them. I'm proud to be Zimbabwean. I can showcase myself as a Zimbabwean to the world scale, national level or international level. Designs, it can be through patterns and other stuff. So as a creative student, I totally appreciate where I came from and what I've been through as an individual, and that's how best I can showcase my work as an entrepreneur as well. Since we're also discussing about the ESD topic, so that's how I get to put myself and also the nation. I mean, into the international level. So that's all I can say.
Alright, so given that things are evolving from time to time, so do you also change your modules? Do you update them from time to time so that it can also go in line with the changing generation?
Oh yeah, syllabus is for hexagonal review, usually after every 5 years.
Okay.
And NAS is actually a topical subject, right? Current affairs, contemporary issues essentially are also embraced in NAS. So there is constant need to keep abreast with what is going on locally, regionally, and also even internationally. For example, with international relations, we are just looking at what exactly is happening on the global arena at any given time.
Alright.
So in essence, the whole essence is that what is Zimbabwe's attitude, what is Zimbabwe's role, what is Zimbabwe's stance with regards to such events. So at the end of the day, NAS is a very contemporaneous subject. It certainly gets to be abreast with what is going on at any given time.
Alright, so I want to thank you, Seth, for your time, and you guys also want to thank you for coming here and discuss and enlighten us about civic education, right? So thank you guys. So guys, you have also learned that NAS and ESD can also help you as a person when you're done with school, right? You have to, for you to be a person, you need identity, and because if you don't have identity, it means you have nothing to do, you're just a mere object. But if you don't know if you don't have that knowledge of your identity, then it's useless, because you learn through all this through NAS and ESD, or what we call civic education. So guys, I hope that you've learned a lot, and if you have more questions, you can ask me on my WhatsApp number. I am Elizabeth Makumbe. I hope you enjoyed the show, Journal of Education. Ciao.